Welcome to Bay Area Art Beat. I am so excited to be at Berkeley Rep today. Last night I was at the opening of Paradise Square. Fabulous, fabulous play. You seriously consider it. And I'm really thrilled to be talking to Tony Taccone. And hi.
Hi.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Well, thanks for having me.
What would you like to tell us about yourself?
Well, you know what? I've been here for 33 years, so everything that's been on stage is sort of part of me, so people can make up their own minds.
That's great.
It's, I guess I would like to say, thank you to all the people who have been supporting us for so long. And we have an amazing audience here.
Yeah.
It's been an amazing experience, and it's rare to spend so long at one place.
Right.
And so to be able to have the opportunity to grow as an artist, as an individual, in concert with the growth of the organization, it's really rare. I mean, usually organizations grow very slowly, and so people hit the ceilings, relatively fast, and so you move on. But this organization has been phenomenal in terms of its ability to grow, adapt, change, reach, and take enough risks to keep everybody involved and really interested and excited. So I've been really lucky. I've been really blessed and really fortunate.
Yeah. Where did you come from before you came here?
I'm from New York.
Yes.
Which I'm always accused of. And I'm happily from New York. And I grew up in an artistic family.
Uh-huh.
My grandfather came from Italy, and he was making his way to Los Angeles. He wanted to be a filmmaker.
Uh-huh.
But he ended up stopping in New York, married my grandmother, and became a photographer. He taught my father photography. My father was a lifelong artist, and I was raised under the philosophy that art is the highest aspiration of mankind. So I was encouraged to be an artist. That's pretty rare.
It is. That's wonderful.
So there's no accident that my brother and my sister are artists. My sons are both artists. I mean, it's just it's part of the culture of who we are.
Yeah.
So I feel really fortunate to be in an environment, like that. My father was giving me books on, Michelangelo when I was 5. So it's kind of like I was sort of like drugged at an early age.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, I come from that kind of an environment, and I didn't really find the theater till actually after college. I went to college. I was an English major, and I was a poet of sorts, a bad poet, but I struggled through my internal life a little bit there, and trying to express myself, and then actually. A friend of mine and I wrote a poem together, and we set it to music, and it became popular. We started like performing this thing.
Wow.
And at some point, we did it so often that we memorized it. Yeah. And I said to him, we don't need podiums anymore. We could actually kind of act this thing.
Yeah.
So we did. So I stumbled into theater that way. I literally stumbled into it. And then, long story short, I went to postgrad work in the theater. Started out as an actor, and then, as a lucky accident of fate would have it, my producer of the shows that we had in Rep came to me the night before we were supposed to go into rehearsal for one of our shows and said, the director got sick. Do you want to do it?
Oh.
I was like,
one of those
okay. And I literally, it's the closest thing I've ever had to an epiphany. Within 20 minutes, I knew I was going to do it. It was just something about directing where I was using parts of myself that had been dormant, and I felt really comfortable in my skin. I could kind of tell that this was a medium that I was excited about, and it was using parts of myself that I really wanted to use. Right. So then I went to school for it. I went to Cal out here for my doctorate, and got that going, and then I found the Eureka Theater in San Francisco, which a friend of mine, Richard E.T. White, who was with me in grad school at Cal, had come over to run, and he asked me if I'd be a resident there. So I went over to the Eureka, which I ended up becoming the artistic director there.
Yeah.
And hired a kid named Oscar Eustace to be my dramaturg. Oscar Eustace now runs the Public Theater in New York. And so we formed a friendship and a bond ever since then. And then I was kind of like, ever since then, I've just been doing the work.
Yeah. Have you been here 33 years?
I've been here for 33 years.
That's great.
Yeah.
So what's coming next?
The rest of my life. What's coming next is I have been really fortunate, and I say this, with a lot of humility, that a number of my friends and colleagues want me to do shows for them.
Oh,
so
great.
I've got some work lined up.
Yeah.
After I leave here, and I've also been writing the last about 10 years or so. I've been writing more, and so I've written a series for television that I want to sell, and so I'm doing more of that stuff too.
Great.
It's really exciting, actually.
Great.
Yeah.
Are you going to stay in Berkeley or?
Yeah. My wife's a lawyer here, and so she's a practice here. But I'll probably be spending a fair amount of time on the road.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the work that I'm getting is in New York and LA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's very exciting.
Yeah, it's nice. I'm not dying. I'm just leaving Berkeley Repertory.
Yeah. Tell me something about the new person who's coming in to replace you.
I think that's very exciting. Joanna Feltzer is her name. She comes from New York Stage and Film, which she's been running for about 9 years. She has a tremendous facility for new work, which I think was one of the stipulations of anybody who was applying for the job here, since we have built a reputation around doing a lot of new work. It's a very for a theater of our size. I think the programming is very bold.
Yeah.
But we've also cultivated a community, and I mean a full community, from the board to the staff to the audience, that understands what we're trying to do. Yeah. Understands that the creation of a new piece of art, means taking chances, means becoming excited about what's unknown as opposed to what's known, and that all of art traffics in that. And so the fact that, like, for example, we opened Paradise Square last night, a new musical with no stars in it. Yeah. The audience has been rapt and ravenous.
Yeah.
They've been listening. They listen with a kind of attentiveness that's the envy of my colleagues around the country. Let me tell you something. Yeah. People come here, and one of the first things they go is like, "I want your audience." and when they
can't have them.
Yeah, you can't have. I mean, it's an audience that is comfortable with complicated ideas.
Yeah.
It's comfortable with ambiguity. It's comfortable with contradiction. It's comfortable with metaphor. You can't put a price tag on that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an audience that doesn't have to see itself on stage.
Yeah.
These are all huge assets when you're trying to make a piece of art.
Yeah.
And especially when you're trying to investigate history. The audience here is actually interested in history.
Yeah.
You can't say that everywhere.
Yeah.
Where, theaters have not really, they've been afraid to go there because they think the audience won't buy it, and in some cases they're right. So we're blessed here. So I basically, all I did, I think, really was exploit what was here. I kind of understood that the audience could go there with us if we gave them some tools and we gave them the understanding of what we're trying to do, because they're very, very intelligent, and they're very supportive, and they want to be in on it.
Yeah.
They want to be in on the experiment. And so the fact that we've been able to do a significant body of new work, a really significant, like if you look at our program for the year, you won't recognize the titles. I mean, for the most part, you won't recognize them. But so what we're selling, all we're really selling is quality. And I think that's the only thing people really want to know is there.
Yeah.
This stuff about formulas for classics and this and that and the other, I think people want quality. And if you give them quality consistently and with an understanding maybe about what experiment they're involved with, I think my experience here has been that they're excited about that.
Yeah.
And they've been really supportive. So this has been an amazing place to work. It is
Great.
and I will miss it terribly.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you'll be doing wonderful things in
Right.
the world.
Yeah.
Is there something that you're proudest of, or something that you feel really good about?
The
Or
thing
maybe,
I'm proudest of is the culture that we've made here. Honestly,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I have favorite plays, like everyone has their own favorite plays, but they're all, my experience of the plays is different from the audiences because I've been involved with the making of the plays. So my experience is more attached to the things the artists had to pursue, the difficulty of their task, that kind of thing. So my memories of those plays are less about what showed up on stage than how it was made.
Yeah.
But I would say that the culture that we've created here, which is the way, the flexibility we have, and the generosity of spirit, and the willingness to support artists. Like, what do artists need to tell the story they want to tell, not the story I want them to tell the story they want to tell.
Yeah.
I think we have an organization from top to bottom, and I want to put out a special kudos to the tech staff that we have here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, everybody from the backstage crews to the stage managers to the shops. I mean, the scene shop, the prop shop, the costume shop, the sound department. I mean, these guys are top flight.
Yeah.
So people come here and they go like, oh, people are also, we're into process here.
Yeah.
We're actually you can't work here if you're not into process.
Yeah.
And kind of going the extra mile to make something happen, which is changing.
It's time for me to say thank you to you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Really, it's been a pleasure.
Oh, good.
And I love your enthusiasm. It
Thanks.
shows in everything you do. And Berkeley is really, really proud to have Berkeley Rep as part of its scenery.
I feel proud that I've been able to be a part of it.
Yeah, thank you so
Sure.
much.
Okay, thank you.
We'll be back soon with another guest from Berkeley Rep, and it's a pleasure to be here. And so welcome back to Bay Area Art Beat. It's a great pleasure to be at Berkeley Rep, and a great pleasure to be able to introduce and speak to Susie Maddock. Welcome,
to see
Susie.
you. Always a pleasure, Susie.
So, tell me what got you to Berkeley, and
how long I've been here and why I'm here and all that.
Yeah.
You know, I actually got one of those phone calls from the board of directors when they were doing a search in 1990 when Mitzi Sales was leaving after having been here for 18 years. Mitzi moved on. She was going to go to Planned Parenthood for 20 years, what turned out to be 20 years. And she had called me actually the day that she announced her resignation, and said, I just want to let you know that I'm leaving, because we'd worked together for years as colleagues, and I wasn't even thinking about taking this job, but we had a babysitter at the time. I was in Chicago with my husband Greg and my son Ben, and we had a babysitter who said, if God wants me to go to California, you're going to take this job. And so I guess God wanted Mitzi to go to California. But so we moved out here in August of 1990, and it never occurred to me that I would be here for almost 30 years.
That's great.
But it's been easy to be here for 30 years because it's first of all, it's such a great community. It's been a place where I've been able to sort of constantly grow, and where the job has changed so much over 30 years that it's been easy to feel like time has just flown by.
Yeah. Well, you've been such an important part of it. When did this building happen? Because I was involved with when this was an auto garage. Right. And Berkeley Rep was going to leave Berkeley.
Oh, wait. So right now we're in the Pete's Theater in the Michael's Second Act Bar. So that's where we are now.
Yes.
And that building was built in 1980, and we refurbished it just a couple of years ago.
Right.
And then the Rhoda Theater, we actually began the construction on it, I think, in 1999, and we opened it in March of 2001.
Yeah.
And that was the same year that we then opened the Niveau Education Center with our School of Theater.
Great. And one of my tremendous passions is artist housing, and you guys have gotten involved with it, and I want you to tell me everything about it.
I should say that in the intervening time, there's one other huge expansion that we took on, which is that from the time that we moved into what is now the Pete's Theater, we started moving out of it. Within 2 years, we had to move our scene shop out. Within a few more years, we had to move rehearsal halls out. So we've been a company that's been growing since we actually began on College Avenue. And about 7 years ago, we moved all of our pre-production facilities over to our Harrison Street campus, to the old headquarters of the North Face.
Right. It's a beautiful space.
It's a
really
great
beautiful
space.
Yeah.
It's just such a pleasure to work there, and it's such a pleasure to bring artists to work there. But the one piece of unfinished business is that over the years our housing costs have become astronomical.
Right.
We've got two sets of needs when it comes to housing. One is because every year we train 15 young people for the profession, where we take them generally out of undergraduate programs. They've finished their training, and they come and they work with us for a year. And in order to be able to make sure that people of any socioeconomic bracket can take part in that training, we actually have to provide the housing. Otherwise, it would be prohibitive for them. And so for years, we've been providing housing for 15 marketing people who are interested in marketing, people who are interested in general management, carpentry, electrics, costumes, stage management.
Yeah.
So we provide 15 beds for them, generally in 2 to 3 bedroom apartments, which we want to replace. And then in addition to that, we hire many artists from out of town.
Right.
And that has created an enormous burden for us. Over the last 6 years, we've taken on a new play development program in the summer where we have a summer residency lab where over the course of 4 weeks, we'll be housing as many as 50 artists every week.
Wow.
And so in I think about 12 years that we've been following this crazy housing boom, our housing costs have gone from $400,000 to $1.4 million.
Wow.
So it's getting close to 10% of our operating budget. And what every real estate consultant, banking consultant, real estate lawyer has said to us is these costs are not going to go down. They might stabilize, but they're not going to go down.
Right.
And so we've just felt that we have to get control of this.
Yeah.
When we built the Rhoda Theater, we purposefully left a portion of that property undeveloped so that we could develop it at a future point.
Okay.
And so finally, we think that hopefully in 6 months or so, we're going to break ground on what will be 45 apartments.
Incredible.
2 classrooms so that we can expand the School of Theater.
Yeah.
And we'll finally be able to enclose our backstage behind the Rhoda Theater so that when scenery moves off stage, it doesn't have to be covered in tarps between scenes. Which is just one of the joys of working in our space.
Yeah.
But so that's the hope. It's a
fabulous.
Huge project. It's terrifying.
Wonderful. It's
really
wonderful.
terrifying. Yeah.
And I think you're probably the first organization in Berkeley that's doing something like this. I mean, building housing specifically for the people in the theater.
It's not just in the theater. We actually were able to go to the city attorney 2 years ago, and as the city was revising their language for their housing their housing regulations, we actually were able to work with them to include a new category of housing, which is workforce housing.
Yes, yeah.
And so this is specifically for people who are working for us or working in other nonprofits, we hope. And our hope is that by having included that in the city's regulations, that ultimately that BUSD could take advantage of this for teacher housing, that other agencies could.
I think it's fabulous. I mean, workforce housing is so important.
Oh my God.
And I'm just so happy to see to see you doing this and hopefully setting some kind of precedent. I mean, it's great, and we have the opportunity now with the new money to do some things in housing.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah.
And I have so many other things I want to say to you, but I'm getting this. This is ending. Okay, so we'll be back in a few moments with another guest, and we will talk more then with a new guest. I'm sorry. Welcome back to Bay Area Art Beat. We have our final interview at Berkeley Rep, and I'm delighted to introduce the composer for the music for Paradise Square, Jason Howland.
Hello.
And hi, Jason.
Hi. Nice to see you.
So, Jason, tell me how you got here.
I was invited to start working on the show 3.5 years ago by Garth Drabinsky, who's our external producer who brought the show to Berkeley. And I didn't know anything about the project, and I went to meet with Garth, and he told me it was about the 5 Points in New York, which I thought was interesting and a fascinating place I knew very little about. But the thing that really surprised me was when he told me that Stephen Foster, who obviously was a composer I was familiar with, was alive and living in the 5 Points, which was pretty much the biggest slum in the United States. So the guy that I, spent my young childhood fumbling around the piano to figure out how to play sort of what felt like traditional classic American songs, turned out to be a guy who was living as a destitute drunk and died as a destitute drunk in the middle of New York City, which was the last place I would have thought. So that hooked me in right away. And then Garth told me that they wanted to expand this musical using all of the songs of Stephen Foster. The show had been created by Larry Kerwin, who was the person who'd figured out that Foster had lived in the 5 Points when he died. And Larry had already started to explore taking Foster's music and using it in this theatrical setting, and finding a way to make the music feel accessible to a contemporary audience. I think when you first think of Foster's music, you think of it as a very sort of old-style, very classic Americana traditional sound. And the goal was to give that music a sense of vitality for today's audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you change? I mean, there was some changing of the music from the way I knew it. What kind of changes did you make?
Every change possible.
Yeah.
Basically, what I felt we had to do was, as we placed the songs in the story, we had to figure out what the dramatic event actually was. So a good example is there's a song that Stephen Foster wrote called "I'd Be a Soldier," which was a patriotic song. And the original way he wrote it is very upbeat. I'd be a soldier, da-da-da-da-da-da. It's sort of very, what we think of as bouncy. In our show, where we've set it up in the show, is to be a response sung by the African American community to say, we would fight, but we're not allowed to. So this happy, major, bouncy song had the right lyric idea of, I would be a soldier if I could. But musically, bouncy and happy was completely the wrong tone. So I kept the melody fundamentally the same, and then changed all the music underneath it so that the melody suddenly sounded like it was minor. And I made a lot of dissonant chords against the chorus so that there was a lot of longing and a lot of pain in the music as opposed to a lot of joy and exuberance.
Yeah. How much of the play is based on fact?
Oh, overall in terms of the story?
Yeah.
I don't have a good answer for that. I think there's been a tremendous amount of research that we've done, but these are, other than Stephen Foster, fictional or semi-fictional characters, an amalgamation of several stories put into one person.
Yeah, I mean the events of the riots,
right.
All that's correct.
All real things, yes.
And the thing about the army that the people could pay $300 to get that's
all true.
I think that's a wonderful thing because I mean, not a wonderful thing. I didn't know these things.
Right.
But I mean, it's just interesting to see this. You forget about the Civil War being a split, red against blue.
Yeah, I think one of the things that people don't realize, we think of the Civil War as North and South.
Yeah.
And one of the fascinating things that I learned for myself that I didn't know was that New York City was very divided about the Civil War, because New York City was becoming the center of finance in the United States.
Yeah.
What was driving the economic financial boom was the cotton industry.
Yeah.
So there was a healthy portion of New York at that time that did not support Lincoln, and did not support the Emancipation Proclamation, and did not support the war.
Yeah.
Because they didn't want the cotton trade to be interrupted, because it was going to be financially devastating for them.
Yeah.
That's something I'd never in a million years would have thought. I learned, in my third grade history book, North and South.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And I saw it as blue and red.
Yeah, exactly. And also just the realization that, the fascination of several things. One, that freed African Americans weren't allowed to serve. That ultimately, I believe, ended up being a state-by-state choice. So I think the first regiment was, I think there's a movie called Glory that looks at that first regiment that was created of African Americans that came out of Massachusetts. But also the idea that they basically took in arriving European immigrants directly from the boat and shipped them right into another boat and said, go serve. It was stuff I didn't know.
I want you to read. I like to end the program with some kind of poetry, and
Yes.
I want you to read from some of the songs, because
I will.
the words in the songs were really. I mean, the whole work was really inspiring.
Thanks. I'm reading off my phone because I don't want Nathan Tyson to get upset that I get it wrong.
That's okay. And
He's a brilliant lyricist.
give us some inspiration.
This is the final song in the show, called Let It Burn, which is sung by our lead character when she's defending her point of view and position. And she says, "Look at what we have created. We gave ourselves a voice. We were safer separated, but love left us no choice. And now all alone I stand at the point of no return. These walls do not define me. I say, let it burn."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
Powerful song.
dramatic, beautiful moment.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
for your music.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And really, really great success with the show.
Thanks.
I see it moving on, right? Do you see it
I
moving
sure
on?
hope so. We put a lot of time in.
Yeah. No, it was wonderful.
Great.
I think it was the biggest thing I've seen produced at Berkeley Rep. And
We got a lot of people on that stage.
yeah,
Yeah.
the dancing was fabulous.
Yeah. Really great work.
I loved the opening with the almost like the painting aspect of it. The dancing was fabulous.
And the tableau of it turning.
Yeah, it's a great show.
Great.
So, okay,
Thanks.
Thank you for speaking to us.
Thank you for having me.
So, we'll be back, and we'll be back next month. I hope everybody enjoys the show, and thank you.
Thanks.